Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I'm Is There No One Else? And the video I am bringing you today, we are going to do an updated Stamina Necromancer build video for the Harrowstorm DLC, my Reaper build that, just basically started in Dragonhold. So we made a couple of additions. The reason this video took so long to do is because I wanted to provide alternatives. Typically I've been a CP, open world PvP guy, and I just make builds for that. But now with the game kind of functioning weird, I want to make sure that I'm running builds that function in no CP as well, whether it's open world no CP or battlegrounds or whatever, wherever you float to make sure a build works. And I also want to start providing alternatives for those of you guys that don't have the new DLCs or the new content and all those other sorts of things. So this build's going to be this video is going to be very long. I apologize in advance. But yeah, we're going to dive into all of it. We're going to go through the gear, we're going to go through the skills, we're going to go through alternatives when we see it. I'm going to give you hopefully all the information that you need to get out on a Stamina Necromancer and slay everybody. So with that being said, let's dive into it. This is the build that I've settled on, and I am going to go through alternatives. This is just my personal preference. This is for CP, open world PvP, but as far as consumables go, we are running Lavafoot Soup and Saltrice. I am an Imperial on this build. You can be an Orc, you can be a Wood Elf, you can be all these other things. I went Imperial for the 3% reduced cost on support, like all abilities. I just find Imperial to actually be pretty useful. You don't have to be Imperial, but if you don't go Imperial, I would probably go Orc too. Wood Elf would also be very good for this specific build. Those would probably be my top three. I don't think you need the tankiness of like a Nord on a Stamina Necromancer just because you already have built-in tankiness. So, but that's just my personal preference. We got tech pots and we're running tripods. Yeah, Lavafoot Soup and Saltrice and those two things. As far as the gear, guys, you guys have seen it. I already have two builds out running it. We are running 5-piece Titanborn. Now, I've talked about this set a lot, and I know that I have. But I want to explain my reasoning, for those of you guys that haven't heard it. But this is a new set that's out in Harrowstorm. 2-piece physical pen, 3-piece weapon damage, 4-piece max stam, 5-piece 106 weapon damage, and 1196 physical pen at full health. This bonus doubles to 212 weapon damage and 2393 physical pen when you're under 75% health. This bonus quadruples to 424 weapon damage and 4787 physical pen when you're under 50% health. So this isn't something I came up with. This was brought up in my Discord. It's nice talking to smart people. And this is a very good point that was brought up. But when you compare this 5-piece bonus at 100% health, it's basically 600 less pen than Spriggans. So even without these modifiers, this set rivals one of the best damage sets in the game. And when we start getting into the modifiers, any good player or good 1vxer is not going to try to get to low health in order to utilize these bonuses. They're not going to be like, oh, I'm at half health, I'm going to go on the offensive and not heal because I want to make sure I hit harder. That's not a thing. Like, people aren't going to do that. So when I first looked at the set, I thought it was very gimmicky. Like, I thought an open world PvP, like, every once in a while was going to work, but it was more of a gimmick than anything. But after testing it and after, playing with it a little bit more, what I realized is this set is Spriggans with on-demand healing. And so anytime I get bursted, like if somebody hits me with a crystal frag or I get hit with a couple fat snipes and somehow I don't get desynced and I recover, when I drop below 50% health, I get 424 weapon damage. And so it's guaranteed to give me more weapon damage when I need to heal. And so I look at this set as essentially Spriggans with better healing. And so that's why I like this set so much. I think it's very valuable. I think Spriggans was already one of the best damage sets in the game. And this, although we will almost never use the 50% modifier, there are plenty of times where you're going to try and finish a combination and somebody hits you with a frag while you're D-swing and onslaughting or D-swing, dawn-breaking somebody else, and you're going to be below 75% health. I'm not saying like it has like 80% uptime or anything like that, but when you're fighting outnumbered, you're not always at full health when you're going on the offensive. Sometimes you get hit, and you're going to utilize the 75% bonus a decent amount of the time. And so this set fluctuates between being definitely better than Spriggans, which is one of the best damage sets in the game, or slightly worse than Spriggans with on-demand healing. That's why this set, I think, is so good. So I like running this set for that reason. I think it's very powerful. You do have to farm it. You do need to do the new DLCs in order to get it. Like I said, I will provide an alternative gear layout when we get to the end because I want to discuss this reasoning for this. You can run poisons. Double dots work just fine. You can run a move dots. You can run a disease enchant. You can run a poison enchant. There's a bunch of things you can do there. As far as back bar goes, it's up to you. I feel like personally Stamina Necromancer is pretty tanky, so you can just run Master's Bow. So I have an infused Master's Bow with Venom Arrow. This works very well. It gives you more weapon damage. I got 452 weapon damage plus the 300 with the Caustic Arrow passive. It's a ranged interrupt. It's very valuable. Like, we're going to be pretty tanky on the Necromancer. That's just the way it is. But if you do not have the Master's Bow, a very viable option that is also amazing, and I've run a lot, is you can run Potentates. You can run Potentates on your back bar, and you can switch out a skill. And I'll get to those skills in a minute here and kind of go through those things as we get to it. But Potentates is super easy to get. 2 pieces reduce your damage taken from players by 5%. So instead of increasing damage, your weapon damage with a Master's Bow, you're reducing your damage taken on your back bar with Potentates. If you cannot find a Potentate's Bow, you can go out and craft Death's Wind. Death's Wind Bow gives you resistances, which also makes you tanky. They're all viable options, is what I'm trying to say. So I've run Potentate's Bow on PC in no CP Battlegrounds. I've run it in open world. It's very effective. I have a very effective combination using the Potentate's Bow. Don't feel like you need a Master's Bow to compete, because I don't think you do. So, yeah. As far as the monster set, we're going Bloodspawn. Bloodspawn just gives us everything. We get more tankiness, we get more ulti-gen, we get stam regen. It's really nice. It's a good set. If you don't run this set, you could run 2 one-pieces. You could look at a set like Balorg. Balorg would probably be my second option. Like, if you don't want to run Bloodspawn, I think Balorg is the second best choice because it just gives you so much. You know, you can throw on a tanky set and run Balorg instead of wearing 2 damage sets and running Bloodspawn. It's up to you. But I'm running Bloodspawn. And then the other set, we are running 5-piece New Moon Acolyte. New Moon Acolyte is a crafted set. It's very valuable. Weapon and spell crit, weapon and spell damage, physical and spell pen, and then 464 weapon and spell damage at the cost of increasing your active abilities by 5%. So I'm running this on both bars. And so I got 5 medium, 1 heavy, 1 light, and then I have all infused weapon damage jewelry. I have New Moon Acolyte on both bars and Titanborn on the front bar. Now, it's been asked, can you run Titanborn on the body and New Moon on the front bar? Yes, absolutely. I am a Necromancer. Of course I'm a Necromancer. I am an Imperial. I have 3% reduced cost, so that 5% doesn't mean a whole lot to me. So I can utilize New Moon on both bars actually pretty effectively in open world CP. If you are not that way and you don't want to farm, on my PC account, I am wearing 5-body Titanborn with front bar New Moon, and your sustain's better, your damage is the same, and when you need healing, you'll have the healing there. It's not high vigor tooltips all the time. So, I mean, it's up to you. Like, if you feel like you're going to lose some damage because you need to build in more sustain from having New Moon on both bars, you're not really getting the benefits of the healing. I don't feel like that's the case with my specific racial choice, so I run New Moon both bars. But either way works. Like, I've run both. My like I said, my PC account, I have 5-body Titanborn. My Xbox account, I have 5-body New Moon. So, I think either way goes. Like I said, infused weapon damage. As far as our character sheet goes, we have 55 points in the stamina. We have 9 into health. This puts us around 24, 25k health in PvP. You see unbuffed, we have 41, 28 weapon damage. We have 40% crit, and we have 29, 96 critical resistance. If we buff up with Rally, and we pop the pot. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Buff up with Rally, pop the pot, and we summon our little character. You see we jump up to 2730 stamina recovery. So I have 4810 weapon damage with just Rally. Keep in mind I also have an infused Master's Bow, which gives me another 1000 weapon damage on the back bar. I'm also running Minor Berserk, so I have a lot of damage here that's not showing up in my tooltips. I also have a lot of pen, via the Titanborn set and via New Moon. So although my weapon damage isn't as high on this build as some other builds, I do have a ton of pen on this build, which is a lot of hidden damage. So, yeah. I am also a Stage 4 Vampire. Vampire is going to come down to whether or not you run across a lot of mag DKs, and in my opinion, there's not too many of them. They're not super effective right now. If you're getting hit by fire damage, vampires are going to get melted, but there's not a ton of fire damage out there. Might as well be a vampire, get the increased recovery, take advantage of the Undeath passive. In my opinion, of course, that's what I do. That's what I prefer. I am running the Serpent Mundus Stone for a little bit more recovery. So this is a round where I have it fully buffed. Like I said, I have 2,700 stamina recovery. It works out pretty well. This is a medium armor build, so I do need a little bit more. As far as our skills go, we buff up here really quickly. Dawnbreaker of Smiting. Now, you don't have to run Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker and Onslaught have their pros and cons. Last patch, Onslaught, in my opinion, was definitely superior to Dawnbreaker, just because it did way more damage and it ignored resistances. Now with Onslaught getting the justifiable nerf that it got, there's reasons for this. Targeting is a little weird right now, and so you don't need a target to drop a Dawnbreaker. So we all know this if we've been PvP'd in some of the lag that's been happening lately. It's hard to land abilities sometimes. It's hard to land light and heavy attacks. And sometimes you try to cast an Onslaught 3 or 4 times, and it's really frustrating. And you don't have those same issues with Dawnbreaker. And that's why I made the switch. That's why I made the switch from Onslaught to Dawnbreaker, because I don't need to lock onto an opponent to hit them with Dawnbreaker. I just need to be behind them, they need to be directly in front of me when I drop the Dawnbreaker, and it's an AoE, and it's a little bit more fire and forget. Necromancers also have 15% more dot damage, and so you'll see I have a lot of upfront damage. I have an 18k tooltip. This jumps over 20k with my Master's Bow and, with Minor Berserk and all that. But I also have a 20k tooltip dot because of that 15% passive. So it does a lot of pressure initially, and then it does a lot of dot pressure as well. And with the Major Defile that we have, it continues to apply pressure to opponents even when we don't kill them right away. D-Swing, the best spammable, in the game. Like, it's not really debatable. This sets enemies off balance. When we set them off balance, we can stun them. And off balance also gives us 10% more damage. That gets buffed pretty easily. Like, we can get very bursty with this. Blighted Blast Bones, one of the hardest hitting skills in the game. I talked about it in another video. Rally, Camo Hunter, and Reverse Slice. Now, you can run Executioner. I'm not saying, it depends on your fights. If I was in BGs, and I have been, I would run Executioner over Reverse Slice. But in open world PvP, sometimes when you're getting bogged down by a bunch of people, I prefer Reverse Slice. I prefer that AoE splash damage because we have a lot of AoE effect on this build. Blast Bones is an AoE, Dawnbreaker is an AoE, and Reverse Slice. And so if we hit with a Dawnbreaker and a Blast Bones, 2 or 3 people are going to go into execute range, and we can splash damage all of them and potentially kill all of them, whereas Executioner is only going to kill 1, and then, we're going to waste some valuable seconds. If you want to run Executioner, that's fine. Like I said, it depends on the fights that you get into. I go back and forth between the two myself. Now, on the back bar, Shuffle. It's our snare immunity. It also makes us a lot more tanky. We get major evasion. Great skill. Summoner's Armor. This gives us our major armor buffs. Major Resolve, Major Ward. This also reduces the cost of our Blast Bone, Skeletal Mage, and Spirit Mender by 15% when it's up. We're running Spirit Guardian. This morph gives you 10% damage mitigation. It's essentially a 5-piece buff for the Swift. This is why Necromancers are so tanky. It is a very, very good skill. Like for a medium armor build like this, we are shockingly tanky with just Spirit Guardian. And we have pretty high healing with the damage sets that we chose. So that's what makes us tough to kill. I am running Venom Arrow with a Master's Bow. Now, like I said, if you are not running a Master's Bow, you don't necessarily need to run Venom Arrow. You can come down here, and you can use Mortal Coil. The morph would be Mortal Coil. I have Mortal Coil morphed on my Necromancer on PC. I don't have it on this one. But you can run a Potentate's Bow back bar with this Mortal Coil in place of Venom Arrow. And what it does is it gives you a free heal that you can summon every time a corpse drops, which, the corpse gameplay is actually very effective now. It's a free heal, and it returns resources. And so your sustain is going to shoot through the roof. You have another heal over time, so your tankiness is going to shoot through the roof. It also increases your healing done by 3% when it's slotted. So you're just a lot harder to kill with Mortal Coil up. That's the gist of it. So you can go back and forth between the two. Necromancers have enough burst to where you don't necessarily need the Master's Bow. You know, like you don't need the Master's Bow for damage. You don't need the Master's Bow dot or the Venom Arrow dot. You can definitely run Potentates, and I have to great effect. Resolving Vigor and Devouring Swarm. Now, I get this question a lot. They're like, dude, you really run... hold on one second, my food disappeared. They go, dude, do you really run bats on a Necromancer, on a Stamina Necromancer? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Look at the tooltip. I have 53, 51 magic damage to nearby enemies every 1 second for 7 seconds. Necromancers have that 15% dot passive, which comes into play for Devouring Swarm. So, if I'm playing by myself, if I'm out open world 1vxing, I back bar bats. Because if a bunch of people attack me, and I've shown it on previous videos, let me build my ult real quick. I'll just kind of show you the combination. But I will summon a Blast Bones, and then I will go into bats. And literally what bats does is it gives me the 5 seconds of not having to worry about healing. I can go full offensive. So I got the Blast Bones coming in with my high tooltip damage. It's going to AoE Major Defile everybody, you know, in the explosion range. And then I'm hitting them with very hard-hitting bats. And then on top of that, I'm also hitting with D-Swing, trying to CC people, put them on the ground. It's a lot of pressure that just allows me to finish targets. And so typically, I'll pop my Rally, summon my Blast Bones, I'll go into my bats, and then I'll summon this, and you see my D-Swing and my Blast Bones still land at the same time. So I still get that pressure with the AoE dot, and that AoE dot is going on everybody. Now, if I'm running with 2 or 3 people, I take bats off, and I put on Pestilent Colossus. Everybody knows what Pestilent Colossus is. It's the major vulnerability ult. So if you're running with 2 or 3 people, this is a stationary area. You can drop it in a spot. Your buddies drop a Dawnbreaker or a Leap or a couple Meteors. You're going to nuke people. It's way better in group play than bats are. So that's why I go back and forth. That's why I decided to be a vampire. I found bats to be extremely effective on Necromancer for that reason. What else? That's the skills. Let's quickly dive into the champion points, and then we'll go into alternatives. 1 in a Siphoner, 56 Warlord, 75 Mooncalf, 5 in Arcanist, 49 Tenacity, 23 Shadow Wards, 61 in the Tumbling, 15 in the Blessed. You can take those out. 81 Master at Arms, 75 Mighty, 43 Piercing, 56 Precise Strikes. I would put them into Precise Strikes to get up to 71. 72 Ironclad, 51 Resistant, 56 Hardy, 56 Ally Defender, 7 into Thick Skin for the Unchained passive, 28 into Quick Recovery. So that's the build layout, guys. That's what I've kind of fallen on. I think it's very effective. As far as alternatives go, like no CP alternatives, what I would recommend for no CP, and you're going to have to do a couple things, but with this specific layout, the way I have it, it doesn't function the way it currently does. Doesn't function well in no CP. My sustain is just not high enough. You know, New Moon running on both bars, my sustain's a little bit lower than I want it to be. So what I would recommend, you can take off New Moon, and you can run a set like Clever Alchemist, or you can run a set like Hulking Draugr, or you know, some other damage set, Fury. You can throw Fury on there, 3 Jewelry, and then 2 Body Fury, and then front bar Titanborn. That would also be very effective. There's a lot of different sets to run. I think the 5% increased cost in no CP on both bars is very rough on a Necromancer. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that. The other thing you can do is instead of running Venom Arrow, you can run Mortal Coil. That'll put your sustain where you want it to be, and you will be able to sustain in open world or in no CP with Mortal Coil and the same gear layout. You know, in my opinion, I've ran that, and it's been very effective. But this specific build layout doesn't work right. Now, as far as alternatives, people are going to ask, you know, what if I don't want to farm Titanborn? What if I don't want to run these sets? You know, that's fine. You know, you guys can... Stamina classes are in a great situation right now with crafted sets being extremely viable. You can run 5 New Moon on the front bar. You get somebody to go out and craft you a set. You know, New Moon front bar, you get 3 body pieces or 3 jewelry with a front bar 2H, and then you craft 5 body of Clever Alchemist. And Clever Alchemist is a great buff set. You know, it doesn't have the 100% uptime on damage on the way Titanborn does. That's why I prefer Titanborn over Clever, but Clever is going to scale very high for your healing. Those 20 seconds, you're essentially immortal with your heals, and 20 seconds is a long time to finish targets. So you can definitely just run 2 crafted sets. You can backbar a crafted set like Death's Wind, and you can wear 2 Bloodspawn. All you have to do is go out and farm 2 Bloodspawn. your Bloodspawn monster set, and you are good to go. Like, you are going to shred people with Front Bar, New Moon, and Clever Alchemist with Back Bar, Death's Wind. Like, that will work very well. It's an easy to set up build. All you need to do is find a crafter to throw all that gear together. I would run your recovery somewhere around how I have it, because that's kind of the sweet spot for me for outnumbered 1vx. That's going to be very, very effective for you guys, and that's going to be effective in no CP. So the gist is, if you are running in no CP, I would either replace New Moon with another damage set, or I would replace the Master's Bow with a Potentate's Bow and slot Mortal Coil. Either way, you need to build in a little bit more sustain. There's a few ways to do it on a Necromancer, but those are the options that I would do. So that is my updated Reaper build, guys. This is what I've been running. This is what I found to be very effective, not only in no CP battlegrounds, but in open world PvP. Necromancer, as we know, it's in a very good spot right now. It is a very effective class. The only issues that it really has, it's a little slow, so we run the bow. We're very tanky. We're also tanky because we can dodge roll. You know, we can avoid damage, and we can also take a hit as well, and obviously we can dish out hits. So this build is just a guide. This is just to give you ideas for the gear sets that you may want to run. If you switch ultimates, if you go from Dawnbreaker to Onslaught, I would take off Titanborn. You know, as an option, I put on like something like Clever Alchemist, or even Shieldbreaker in that situation would be more viable than Titanborn, in my opinion, because you want to buff your damage on your Onslaught. But if you're running Dawnbreaker, I do think Titanborn is the best option. I think Dawnbreaker right now is better than Onslaught for the targeting reasons that I mentioned. That's why I'm running what I'm running, but you may come to different conclusions. You may come to different ideas. This is just out there to help you out if you're having issues coming up with a build you want to run on your Necromancer. So that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.